decorations and things that we wanna do to keep it, to upkeep and keep it looking nice.
Thank you for all coming this afternoon. Most of you, I don't think there's anybody in here I don't know. On the front of your packets, and if you didn't get one, there are some on the back table yet, is a drawing. This was done by Avery Miller, Corey and Mindy Miller's daughter, Merle and Deb's granddaughter. I kind of threw it at her last second one time. I said, I need a sketch. It was just showing the trees and everything else gone. And she got that to me in about a day, so I always want to let her know that we did that for her. Second page or so, come on in, April. There's some handouts on the chair there if you want one. First we'll go through a little bit of the history on the monument. First thing is it can no longer called a circle. It's not a circle. It's 20 foot longer one direction than it is the other. It's an oval. So, just in case you hear me say oval, it's one in the same place. It was all started by Mr. Adams of the Adams Ranch history. He made an agreement with the city of Odebolt to build it. When he was starting, it was going to be just a park with a large water fountain in the center. And that was before World War I started. And so the project has changed just a little bit as we went through. And the plaque in the memorial's oval reads, in grateful recognition of the men of Odebolt and vicinity who served their country in the World War from 1914 to 1918. If you kind of keep going through the pack, and the next page I have there for you is from November 9th of 1916, and it's the official publication of the ordinance and rules that were agreed to between the city and Mr. Adams. At that time, they were still talking about a fountain being in the center, so that had not changed yet. If you read through some of that, there was property swap going on between the railroad tracks and the bank building. You have to forgive me, I still call that Neil's Bank. So if you hear me refer to things, but not by the current name, it's my age. So they were swapping property around, and that was kind of, I think, part of the deal that he built. He was going to donate this park to the city, and part of it was that he got some of that property between his building and the railroad tracks in the swamp. So the darker paragraph on the right-hand column talks a little bit about in that agreement that the city would always maintain the property, and they would always make sure there were 4 trees planted within the park. I know we got a few people excited when we cut the trees down in December, but they will be replaced. And that's the other reason why there have already been 4 trees in there. Some people say, just leave them out, you know. Well, that was part of the original agreement. From what we can tell, the first trees planted in there were elm trees, matching what used to be on either side of the roads out to the ranch. So, just don't know when they were planted for sure, or the time frame. In October of 1920, we have found an article that talks about the workmen now being back to work at the Monument Circle Oval, that they were laying the foundations for putting the Soldiers Monument in place, and talking about the handsome metal enclosure set for the coping that will encircle the park.
An oval, the park. It can't be a circle. I'm kidding. And oval the park instead of in circle.
The oval park, yeah. At that point in time, it was always kind of about in the middle or towards the end of the war, it started being referred to as the Soldiers' Monument. So there's a little bit of different wording. And then the last set of articles I have for you from the paper is from November 11th of 1921, when they dedicated the monument. And it was dedicated coinciding with Armistice Day. And there was a minute or two of silence for prayer at the same moment that they were doing it in the National Cemetery in Arlington. It's all timed out. But if you read through this, there was quite a program presented by the school children and the teachers and different social groups in town. The Daughters of the American Revolution, Women's Relief Corps. There were a number of sketches, and then they had a big parade from the school downtown where they did the dedication for the actual monument itself. Yeah, and the bands played, and the Van Meter was a chaplain from the Rose Post that did the service. And in the honor of the unknown soldier whose body was at that hour lowered into the grave at the same time, the unknown soldier. Yeah, those are kind of sends shivers up your back, realizing that that happened, you know, all at the same time. If anybody has questions as we go, we don't have to wait till the end. A number of you have heard me preach about this before, but okay. The next is Sandy Host, the one that did the book on the Adams Ranch. Her and her husband were conversing with someone who had asked about dimensions of the circle, and this is the letter that they sent. But it talks about how there's 180 feet of artisan handmade fence that goes around that oval. To the best of our knowledge, it all came from Chicago. It was hand done there. And that the number of spikes that are into the granite blocks, the number of granite blocks, how tall the fence stands, just different descriptions about, you don't think of that being such a big deal. But we've had some experts come in from Omaha that just wanted to slap our fingers when we suggested maybe replacing instead of repairing. And so that's all kind of cool information there. We are listed on the United States World War I monuments throughout the United States. We don't have Historical Society registration yet, but we are on the World War I list of monuments for those that like to go look things up like that. We have enclosed in your packet is the letter of support from both the American Legion, the men's, and the ladies of the American Legion. Have both been big supporters for us as far as getting paperwork and offering to do a lot of leg running for us as we go forward. We have a picture at the top here of the park area before it was a park and the streets are still dirt. It would be if you were up towards the elevator silos looking down First Street. I don't believe any of those buildings are still standing that you can see. There might be a utility pole that was there, and the only it's on the alley for our old building. That's one of the reasons I know that. Again, we don't have a date, so if anybody's going through anybody's pictures or records, if you're cleaning out a relative's house, if you come across anything, we would love to have it. the next picture of the monument, in the center of that page, if you look at it close, and again, we're looking like down First Street, Second Street to that area, you will note that the flagpole is on the other end of the circle, not on the west end as it is today. And there's no gate on the west end, and there is today. When they added the second gate is anyone's guess. We don't know if they did it at the time they put the time capsule in there, centennial time, or when it went in. But and we do know that that flagpole that's pictured fell and almost took off the canopy of Denny and Don's station, the Skelly station, when it went. So that's about the time frame it got moved in the opposite direction. So now one of the next questions becomes, why do we want to do this? Well, I'm a history buff, that's one of my reasons. And the fact of what it should stand for. To the veterans and World War I in particular, and the history, especially when you start reading about the Armistice Day and the timing of the soldier and the unnamed soldier, was always interesting to me. And then we had our building across the street for how many years? So we were always looking out at the windows. The last set of trees that were just cut down, I helped plant. Gary Schrader had found those for us, so that's how long they had been there. If you turn to the colored picture, next, also shows why something needs to be done. The trees are overgrown, we have signs attached to the fence, we have people came into Swanson's after those trees were cut down the next day or two, made a comment that they didn't know that monument was in there. And ones that knew it was in there had no clue what it said. I thought that was a shame. Especially, and I suppose helping Roger and Ellen Beeler do the flags for Memorial Day at the cemetery. You know, now you're starting to place names and people and which war they fought, and it's important that these people be remembered. But you can also see the gaps in the concrete block. Last November, this thing would have been 100 years old. That's another reason for the push. But time and weather and things out of not everybody's control have shifted that outer perimeter from the northwest to the southeast. Everything is migrating that direction. You can kind of see in that photo that there is a cement pad underneath that granite that everything should sit on. And it was all fit together with copper tubes and kind of a cement putty of some type between each block that's there. When you start looking at it close up, you can start to see some of the damage you don't realize is there when you're just driving by on the street. So, and Merle and Mr. Dodson did wonders over the 100 years that we know of for trying to keep it repaired. But some of it, here, this lower picture you can see right about there where the post of the fence no longer fit into the block. They shifted enough that it sheared that off here. And the top photo is just looking at it from a different angle. That fence should be fitting into that gray spot right about there. And then you can also see all the little details in the scrolls, in those brackets that hold everything together. Those are all handmade. We had to have that done now. We'd be looking at a fortune if you could even get somebody to do all of that. So those are some of the deals. This next photo, you can start to see the separation in the blocks. Some of them are up to 6 inches gap that shouldn't be there. And this lower picture shows where they added a piece of metal to extend it out to fill a gap. And then the bolt is now gone, should have gone through there. As we fix some of that, we may end up having to slot all those holes to be able to push them and pull them together and put new bolts in there. So that is that. But there again, you can kind of see some of the cement down in here is part of the ledge that everything should be sitting on. And you can see how much it's slid off to different directions. It's hard to see down in this picture, but in this area are metal pipes, about yay big in diameter, that come up out of the ground. They come up maybe about this far. They're not all quite the same, and they have metal caps on them. And for years, people have been telling me that that was for water troughs so they could water the horses. No. We can find out all kinds of things. We're not a circle, and those are not for water troughs. What they told me, and several people remember seeing it, but we don't have a photo, is that like on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and special holidays, they would take those caps off and drop in flagpoles similar to what we do out of them, and they had the branches of military flags in there. And if you go back and count the number of pipes coming out of the ground, that would be correct. Though that was added later because at the time of the monument being built, there were only 4 branches of the service. There's 5 now, and there are 5 pipes. But Sue Grunemeyer remembers seeing them when she was working at the plumbing shop for her dad on Saturdays, and Mark Reese's brother remembers seeing them. And other people think they remember, but I don't know if they really remember, or if I'm telling them it happened, oh yeah. So, any photo of that, and that has to be, I'm guessing from 1960 on up. Like I say, go through anybody's closet, scrapbooks, see anything, snarf it. People ask about money. We have a lot of guesstimates because every time we take 1 step, we take 2 steps sideways. At first, we didn't think there was going to be any issue taking that fence off the block, stacking the block, repairing the cement, putting it all back, and dropping it in. Well, the way the fence is originally attached into the concrete block, nobody really wants to touch it. They're afraid they will break the granite pieces. We are working through with a couple of funeral directors to put us in touch with people that deal with granite all day long. They're assuming that they can come down when the weather's right and be able to heat that up enough that they can get the fence pieces out without harming the block. If not, if we can do that, then we can get the sections of fence repaired properly, sandblasted, and powder coated painted. So the paint should well last generations again. If not, we're going to have to jerry-rig everything back into place and have it sandblasted in place and have it spray painted, which is not near the repair we want with the being able to powder coat it. So depending on our answers we get, shifts our budget and our timeline every way. we are guesstimating, if we can get it off and repaired, that we are looking at close to $50,000 to do this project. We, at this point in time, have taken in $22,760 worth of donation. We've had several people that have been repeat donators. The telephone, Arion, their connections to the telephone service. The Women's Auxiliary has donated generously, so has the American Legion. Sandy and Tony Host made a huge donation of $10,000. So, United Way has donated, United Funds has made 2 donations over the 2 years we've been collecting. We have a donation from the county. We have not asked the city for any funds as of yet. They, at the time we talked to them, what, a year and a half ago, Renee?
Mm-hmm.
Probably. They were hoping that they could give us some donation of labor for their donation. But our ultimate goal is when we are done, that we will have the fence in and all the granite repaired and replaced and reset. That we will add an additional arch behind the monument itself and properly place the 5 flags spaced out in there and have that lit, so that each flag will be lit, and we will add another light to light the monument. There is a light in there now that should be lighting the flagpole, but that light is not working currently. They were gonna contact Mid-America, but I don't know if it's the bulb or the light fixture or what is happening there. It is also our intention, there is a meter and kind of a utility box mounted next to the monument on the north, on a piece of plywood that of course has seen better days. We will move that at that time when we can do the electrical. So we will do it in stages. The other issue we have right now is if we can't take the fence apart, we're gonna have to lift the stump grinder, the payloader, lift it up and over the fence because we can't get it through the gates. Gates are only 3 foot wide, or if that.
Do
Lift
they
it in
open
there.
up easily? Do they open up easily, the gates?
No,
No.
they don't open easily, they don't open wide enough, and they don't open completely. You get maybe a 30-degree angle when you open that fence up. Depends if you're going in or out, or it's just, time has really done a number on them. And like I said, don't know if, why the second gate was added. We don't know if that was because of the shrinkage and stretching of the fencing, that they didn't, the only way to fill that gap was to shorten something and make it a gate.
Is it
We
the
don't
same fence out at the cemetery?
I'm sorry, my hearing's really bad.
Is the same fence out at the cemetery? Is
No.
it exactly, no?
No, it's
Okay.
very similar, but it's not the exact same fence as the cemetery. The one at the cemetery is not as detailed, and I don't believe it has the short little spikes in it.
Okay,
I think they're all long,
okay.
if I remember. The gentleman that came up from Omaha to look at our project also went out and visited with Steve Gunderson, because it was after the last large tree took, added a new contour to the fence out there.
That oval seems kind of inaccessible, which it is, and you can't read what it's all about from the fence too much even, I don't think, can you? It's hard to read.
It can be read. It does, that plate needs to be cleaned really well with a good brass cleaner.
So I wondered, is it going to be, it might be nice to have those 2 fences You know, that would maybe encourage more foot traffic through there, possibly, but otherwise, you're just in your car looking at it, so I don't know.
There has been talk about possibly adding a concrete bench
That'd be
in
nice.
there.
Would there be any wisdom in putting what that plaque says on the outside somewhere where someone could see it? You know, kinda like you have your, other houses that are important, you could just have that and just have it there, so people could maybe read it better, I don't know.
My fear would be that you couldn't read all the detail as you were driving by, you'd
No.
still have to stop.
You have to.
And if we do something like that,
Widen.
that's something we can look at later on. Some of the things, like adding a bench, might keep us from getting it marked as a historical monument. So we're having to tread that way. We're thinking we can get by with the flagpoles because, for the flags, because they're already in there. It's not something we're adding, we're moving a little bit, but, that it's still already part of the project, so.
So how are you gonna move it back to circle? Dirt? You have to remove dirt?
Yeah, part of our next move is we need to dig a trench about yay wide all along the inside of the perimeter. So that they have room, so those blocks that have moved too far one direction, that earth has moved in with it. So we have to have a gap inside, so they have room to push and pull those blocks. Cause if they just start pushing, they're not gonna push it against the dirt. We gotta get that all cleared out and find the cement pad that's underneath there. Yeah. I'll volunteer to dig the trench.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
The fence out by the cemetery, is that about the same era?
I honestly do not know.
Okay.
I honestly do not know, because the original Odebolt Cemetery is where Cubby's is now.
No, it was, my understanding was, there were bodies that were moved, and it was out about a mile east of town, somewhere out there.
We have a picture of it at home,
You know
it's
about
not
where?
that, it's not that far out.
I know it wasn't, it was when the railroad went through, see, they wanted, so it must be somewhere along the railroad tracks.
Because they said
I
they
never
moved,
done-
what, 76
Yeah.
bodies at that time?
I would say it was more in behind your building than Cubby's.
Yeah, it was some.
That whole
But I never
area where
know
our
exactly
building
where
is
it
and
was.
Cubby's was originally, when I moved to town, was McCork,
Yeah.
is that right? Yeah, that was their farm place, Yeah.
And them to get you.
so,
And Curry's.
Yes.
and then, I believe it was a Wagner or Wheeler that donated the ground out here for the cemetery.
Probably Wheeler.
Okay. So, but now whether, the timing of that fence out there, I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know, are they gonna repair some of that? Do you know? Have they?
I don't know what they're gonna do for that section where that big tree landed on it. So that'd be a good question for Steve. And Spear, isn't he on that committee?
No, Squint.
Squint, okay.
Dale.
A Bankford husband, or an Allen husband.
Yeah, there you go.
So is there grant money available, like matching funds, can we?
We have, the nice thing about the donations we've collected, we have some we can work with now, because so many of them require matching funds. We have 3 grants that by the end of the year will be written. The Renzi grant, the SAC endowment grant, yep. And then there was, it's not AARP, it's the one Carol found for us the other day. But it has to do with restoring projects that, in fact, you have to be or in the process of being, doing a national register for that. We've kind of questioned whether or not, as far as grant writing goes, do you ask for a large amount that you want, and hope you get some? Do you ask for a smaller amount even though you need more, so you might have a shot at getting some? So that's all kind of up in the end. I think they've decided we just ask for what we want and hope that they give what they can and that we can get some of that funds. Bill has been working on making a donation, because of the type of corporation we are or are not, for it to be, you correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, for it to be a tax type.
The city has a federal tax ID number. And
So,
like I made a donation, she didn't even know about it yet, through my IRA. You don't have to pay income tax on it then. But you have to do it through the city, and the city's sitting on that money that she had neglected to tell her
So
about.
if anybody wants to make a donation and write it off their taxes, it can be done by doing it through the city and designating it to our project. So, I'm treasurer and I don't
But
wanna
the
do.
bank had to send the money directly to the city.
As far as your IRA was
Yes.
concerned, yeah. So, that is that. A number of people tell me they remember, back in the day, doing, band concerts down near there, Saturday nights, right? Whatever store night was in the old days.
That was
I
Asian-
remember
that
all
was
the
Asian daughter
homecoming.
night in those days.
I remember the homecoming rallies always being down there, the king and queen being crowned down there. And somewhere I do have a picture of a band shelter, kind of, looks like it's pretty portable, like almost a lean-to shed, that was down in that area. So, and Dad came up with a book printed by the Chronicle in 1938, with the highlights of the previous 50 years of town. It's got the firemen and the Civil War veterans pictures, and it goes way back, and there's different pictures in there, but the condition of my book is not the best, and to get pictures out of some of them, it's just not working well. I can't, doesn't fit on my scanner or in my copier real well. So like I say, any type of picture you can get from that area.
You know, Roxy, I think I know what you're talking about. You see where in websites where they have a stand and then it's kind of tilted, which would tell the history of everything. But it wouldn't be attached to the monument circle, so we probably could get by, maybe that would be a thing to do, Vic, that we could sit at maybe on the east side, because that isn't quite in traffic.
The other option is, when we get to that point of possibly having something much larger and attaching it to, like Hemer's building. So you could read it on the side of the building as you went by, or maybe next to the parking lot for the community center.
It'd be kinda neat to have a history of W.P. Adams and
Yeah,
that beautiful
yeah.
bank. You did it on the east side, you would be looking this way, you know, I guess is the plaque on both sides? I can't remember.
No,
It's not.
no,
It's
it is
on-
only
okay.
facing to the west.
Gotcha.
Only
You
facing
think I
to
would
the
know
west.
that, but, okay.
And that is 3.5 feet wide, deep, 6.5 foot wide, 8.5 foot tall. I have no clue what that would weigh. But I am going to try to get, if I can, some type of estimate on what that would cost if you were building that today. Can you imagine? I do know they told us that each one of those segments of granite going around is probably worth $2,000 each, and that's why nobody wants to break it. It would be an expensive repair.
So Vicki, do you think 50,000 covers the whole entire project, or just working the fencing, that part of it? I know you're guessing, but.
I'm hoping it's everything that's sitting there today. Yeah. And Pam Hansen is in contact with Iowa State to help us pick a good tree to replace in there. So many things are no longer, I mean, some succumbing to disease. And just like we went through the Dutch elm and all that stuff, we'd hate to get those trees to a nice size and then lose them right away. And one of those pictures, old time, you can see in this one when those trees were still there, how they kept them trimmed real high so it didn't obscure any of the monument. And that's something we'll have to put on our wish list as time goes by, that we keep that way.
I just got a text from somebody that's related to Herman Rose, the guy with the, what was he, Legion?
Legion Post.
Okay. She's related to him, and she said, tell Vicki Beckman I'll be more than happy to help, let her know.
Very good.
She's from Glidden, so she said happy on the weekends or the evenings, but she's willing to help, so.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Wouldn't you be better off with a tree that didn't get so big, and maybe there's a type of tree, the root goes down like an evergreen? Because those
That's why
roots over the
that's
years
why
could
we'll
have just,
take the recommendation from Iowa State.
they could have moved
What
a
is
lot of that
best there.
cement.
I'm afraid that
Things.
an evergreen, as it grows, will obscure too much.
No, I know, I said like an evergreen,
Oh, yeah,
not
yeah.
an evergreen. It's
Yeah.
something that doesn't, the roots don't
When we
push.
were first just kind of kicking this around, 2 years ago, we even talked about putting some of that tall pampas grass kind of back behind there to help set off the monument itself. But those are all options, but yeah. Those trees, let's see, 30. We were thinking the trees we just cut down were close to 30 years old. So one was really rotten, and the others were really starting to show their wear there. And I come up with that number is Gary and Slim had the hardware store down here. My kids weren't here yet, and they're 25, I'm 6, and I helped plant them, so now I'm going with 30. And some people ask, well, why didn't the roots go down? Well, at one point in time, we had timber flower planters raised probably about this tall from above the ground around each of those trees, filled with dirt, and then petunias. Well, the tree root came up to the level of the dirt. That's why they looked like they were so much higher than the ground. Why they didn't go down? It's because they were down if the flower planters were still there.
Are we gonna put grass back in there?
We will replant, but not until all the block are moved, the tree stumps are out, and then we'll have everything graded and seeded, and right now, if we'd seeded it to grass now, we'd just be tearing it out again.
Or would it be better to do a rock, or, I don't know.
You need to move to Arizona. All of their grass is rock. Yeah. There's pros and cons to that.
I mean, I don't know what the town would want there.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of it, if you're gonna put this as a historical thing, you're gonna have to mind P's
Probably
and Q's
big
with
grass,
that.
yeah.
It has to go back to the way it was,
Yeah.
I suppose.
When I'm a little bit older and more senile, go for the rock. I just know anytime I have put gardening mesh stuff down and put rock over top of it, it keeps the stuff from growing up, but the birds poo in there, and the rabbits poo in there, and the flower seeds blow in there, and then pretty soon I got all this stuff growing out of my rocks.
Rocks fill up
So-
with dirt, cause I had that down in Texas, especially along the cement and stuff,
Yeah,
and then the birds come along.
and
I
then
had
either
to hire
that, and then you
somebody in
gotta
the
go in
summertime
and
to spray it.
spray it every spring to kill everything that grows in there. I don't know, that's, if you paint the rocks green, maybe.
Yeah, AstroTurf, there we go.
AstroTurf,
Yeah.
maybe.
Cause it's gotta be hard to get a mower in there and
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
to water it.
Everything that we are looking to redo as far as for the additional flagpoles and that will be set in concrete, so mowing and trimming should not be an issue for damaging anything. Went right through there. All of the fence is mounted in the center of that 1 foot thick block, so it's 6 inches from an edge from either direction. Mowing and weed eating should not be an issue inside there. The grass is not good that's in there now, but it grows in the shade, or has been growing in the shade, so that's part of it. And drainage, it's full of mud, it just needs a good tilling and landscaped and put right so it drains.
You also
We got
need-
some wild dips going in there.
You also need to pull a lot of that dirt out of there. You gotta remember the elevator of the corn shaft,
Oh, yeah,
that turns to dirt, cause I used to get that over the sidewalk, always had to keep digging it out. And that needs at least that much dirt taken out of there,
yeah.
cause that pushes on your cement too, when
We,
it builds up.
we have a couple firemen that have volunteered to take a truck down, and wash out everything around the circle. And to, like you say, the corn dust and everything else that's accumulated in there, just get it out so we can see a little better underneath and just make it look a little better. As streets have been paved on the west end, if you look on that colored photo, you can see where it's raised, or the gutter area, like here, is above the street level. Well, around on the other side, it's about even. So you get water that, of course, drains into that thing, and it gets down the other end, and the lips, it can't get out.
Hey, there is that capsule in there, would that hurt us filing for?
That will disappear in a hurry if I have to.
Yeah, I wondered about that, yeah. that's
At
what
least
I
the
said.
stone above it will, until after we get our designation, then you can put it back.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm just
Yeah,
thought
those are
that.
all things that we've got to deal with and figure out.
But if we have to put it on National Registry, they may not allow us to have that in there, we may have to take that out. Just thought of that, we could always put it in Heritage Square.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and then we would know what's in it in our lifetime. Cause I think 2077 is when they're allowed, or supposed to open it
Yeah.
again.
You can't look.
And I don't know what it looked like, what it's inside of,
It's a steel
what they
bo-
buried, I
It's a
don't
steel
know.
box.
Yeah, we can't, yeah, but we may have to
Dave
move
Thompson
it,
built
we may have to move it.
So like, has it rusted through?
Oh, no,
Plate?
it was, yeah.
Okay.
Dobson
I'm
did
not
it,
saying it
Probably
didn't leak,
Dobson
but
did
it's
it.
not gonna rust
Yeah.
through it.
we're rolling.
Tupperware would be good, Technology, we're moving up in the world. So if anybody's got any questions, anything they wanna know about, anything they wanna add, we're open to almost any suggestion. Keep in mind though that getting on the National Registry is, once it's restored, is our goal. So if we run into, hey, that's a good idea, but we can't do it because we don't want anybody's feelings hurt, maybe we'll get a bench on the street across from it where they can sit and look at it as benches go. If you know anyone who would like to make a donation, that's my next pitch, final chapter. We do need to look at raising another $20,000. We know it's not gonna come all at once, and we know that some of it, people really want to donate, but they wanna see things happening there before they sign that check. We have just started building, it will be a scale model of the Monument Oval. We'll have it on display by Crick Days, so people can see it that morning when we have our pancake breakfast there. So don't forget to come, because I think I'm gonna twist a few arms, and this year's proceeds will be donated to the fence. But yeah, and it's really surprised, the article that was in the Courier a few weeks back. If you didn't see it, it was a nice page and a half on our project, a lot of the history here. We generated several donations from people that haven't lived in this community in generations.
Have you talked to like the Des Moines Register, the Sioux City Journal, to see if they would do an article on it and get it out?
I have not. Like I said, I hate, in a way, I'm a little bit torn because I can't give you a straight line from here today to where we're gonna end up. Just because we have so many zigzags. It's been a true learning experience. After we started taking that on and people tell us, well, you know, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Especially when the gentleman from Omaha came up and looked at that fence. Because I was kind of one of those, well, let's just replace it. So, like I said, I got my finger slapped that day. We do have to make arrangements that as we progress, you'll see snow piles are not gonna be by the flagpole across from the bank anymore. That's part of the snow, the weight of the snow. If you look at that end, the fence as you go around from the bank, it's leaning in. And it's leaning in on a side where the snowbank isn't completely there, but that whole west end is leaning in. Some worse spots worse than others. So the snow pile and the pressure of pushing the snow there, can't move the concrete block, can't move the fence. We've visited with the city and they've acknowledged it, and they did try to put the snow a couple different places downtown this winter. We didn't have a lot, but a few. So if you see what Michael Grody and that, tell him thank you for not putting it where it's always been for years. The spikes on the fence, I'm sure if we'd been allowed as kids, we'd have come downtown and played on that snow pile with our sleds, you know. But with the spikes and on that, the liability, somebody impaled themselves on it, it's just better not to even have snow pile there. I've been told that the fences survived being hit by cars once or twice over the years, but anything that lasts that well over 100 years is, if things move and move quickly, of course we would love to be done by November of this year. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but it would be the anniversary of when Armistice Day arrives. For the following school year, I'm gonna visit with several of the teachers and see if we can't make it, I don't think they do Iowa history anymore, but make it part of a project for them to try to find some history or match up gravestones at the cemetery. We have a list of the avenue flags. A lot of you help when we do the flags out at Memorial Circle, or at the cemetery Memorial Day. The way your family has one for anyone buried out there is if the family or that person bought the flag. So if you're a veteran but don't have a flag, you're not on the list of that. So we have a large number of veterans that truly aren't accounted for. So when I come up with a name, I get hold of Roger and Ellen Beeler, and Roger will go out there and say, this road, this, and he can find them for me. But when you start looking at those pictures, I bet there were over 30 men from Civil War days from Odebolt, that a number of them have to be out in that cemetery. And as far as I know, there's only one that is on the Avenue of Flags. You're going through the list in your head, aren't you?
I think there's only one,
Yeah.
when you read them out.
Yeah. But, so there's things like that as we're finding, in old papers and, stuff like that, that I'd love to be able to find all of the World War I veterans from, I'm waiting for an answer back from Sac County and Ida County, to see if in their veterans administrations, they have a list of that age or era of veteran. So at least we have names we can start with to go out through there. If some of the old headstones, you know, how they're marked or not marked, you know, you might have a family one here and then 10 little headstones and you're not right sure
Where the
who
flag
belongs,
is.
what the family trees are, to get back to that.
And it's not in a cemetery directory?
Not as far as status of veterans, unless I'm wrong, Tom. Do you remember from your days?
What now?
If you took,
We've got a list of-
registered for who's planted in the cemetery,
We've got listings.
are they listed by if they were a veteran and what
No,
war?
no, no.
Yeah, see,
We
that's
don't-
what
we
we would
don't,
have to do.
That I know of anywhere, they always have the names and when they were buried.
St. Martin's wasn't either,
Yeah,
so I had the books for a while.
Oh.
Because I don't think
so,
whether they're buried or not.
Oh, that'd be a good research project for that era. Take all those names and try to contact,
yeah.
but that's hard.
Sandy, hostess, made several attempts to get in touch with people in the Adams, what's left of the Adams family. And, she is down to a granddaughter's husband, I believe, is the only one she's had actual contact with.
Because I know 3 or 4 years ago, Steve Gunderson and I looked at the cemetery, the big bench that the Adams has out at the cemetery really needs some work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
it
were
does.
Yeah,
trying
I
to
know.
get a hold of somebody, and I don't know if he ever did. I don't think he did. but
She lives in Benton, the
one-
great-grand.
The one she gave me was, I believe, a Florida
Oh,
address.
Florida, okay.
Yeah,
But I'd like, we did, don't do that anymore, but I mean, because I think maybe somebody there would like to see that, and maybe be willing to do something if they,
we have a customer from up at Early who has, over the last few years, been working through the Catholic cemetery in Early and cleaning tombstones and being able to get all of that orange rusty stuff and the different things off. And I think Karen would be willing to come down and teach the proper way to do that. But yes, in one of my other packets, I have the saying for what he has on that bench out there for Adams, and the pictures of the individual stones there.
I can't think of their name, but there's a gal that was, the Cranston, she knew the Cranstons, and
Households.
well, there's one gal, she's gotta be about my age, maybe a little younger, that put a stone out there for the last few years, so I assume she's gonna be buried back here, but I don't know where she
There's
was.
a Beverly, isn't it a Beverly?
That could be the granddaughter or great-granddaughter.
And then her daughter is the one that lives in Iowa, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But Beverly lives in Florida, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Yes, and a lot of the issues around that family plot is it's so shady, no grass can grow.
No,
Yeah.
So it's muddy all the time. So it kinda needs to be, all the stones need to be dug up around. They're really not all that bad for, being able to read what's on them. But yeah, the bench too, is kind of on pavers or concrete, and that's kind of busted up. The bench itself is, if I remember right, isn't all of that bad.
It just needs to be cleaned.
Yeah, it needs to be
Just
a good
needs to-
cleaning. In fact, I had to go out after one of our meetings about a year ago, cause I could never have remembered seeing that bench.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
So I now know where the Catholic section is and where the stones are for the priest and, different things like that. One of the bigger donations that we've gotten two of now is, from Faith Lutheran Church. Have, given us $1,000 and $1,500, $1,000 last year and $1,500 this year. I won't name names or anything, but out of 5 churches, I've heard from one. And,
Oh, yeah.
I have a question. I posted on here that
Okay.
if people had questions, if they were watching,
Yeah.
to ask. Is there an address for someone that lives out of town to send a donation?
yes, there is. It can be sent to P.O. Box 434,
3,
Odebolt.
what was the number again?
434.
434.
Yeah, box number 434. You just make it out to the Odebolt Betterment Committee.
Okay.
Tom, that was like Barbara Searle, she was in Adams that owned that, where Jeff Cranston lives, Ralph Berner owned that, was that like her,
Yes,
a
and
daughter or something?
it was a relative, cause she came back, it was during the fall, and she come back to, Cranston's farm, that, some of the health.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name, or I didn't really have any contact with her, but she was out in the cemetery one day.
My interest in contacting the family was twofold. One, kind of to get permission to clean around their family plot, because I think that's kind of an important area too. No more than anybody else, but that's kind of in the mud, and he was a major
Yes.
provider, financer on this. Second, if anyone in the family anywhere has any type of records or drawings or receipts for the materials that went into the monument circle. They say there's been some water damage now in the bank's apartment over here. It was one of the reasons they replaced the skylights. And they thought a lot of paper type things were damaged or rotten and no longer salvageable. The city can't find anything, the Chronicle has yet to find anything for me. I've talked to the Courier, Roger Rector, to see if he would know of what had archives over there for the newspapers. And really from the 1916 or 1914, when this all started, to after it was dedicated, and even when it was dedicated, there are no photos.
Was there anything in the paper?
Not that I have found,
Anything?
not that I have found. So that's another part of my plea there again. If you're going through an old book, old photo album.
There was not a lot of photographs of the bank being built either.
No, well, I do have one.
There's a few, but there's
Yeah,
not very
well,
many.
they're setting the stone.
Yeah.
But
Got a lot of
they're,
articles on the bank, I should read that and see. if
they
it
have
says
all
anything.
kinds of photos of the doctors and dentists and school teachers and the businessmen in the paper at that time frame, but there's nothing on the bank. So I don't know if he wasn't in good favor with the town people at the time. You know how that goes. You do something, you torque somebody off, and now it's not in the paper. Who knows? That's just a wild guess. Don't repeat that. But yeah, would love to get my hands on any of that. And if you know anybody who is into scrapbooking, we'd love to put all of this booklet form that people can look at. One of my goals, I have so many goals lately, is to get all of this on a flash drive. So instead of having to pass out handbooks, if you wanted to show it at a church group, or you just come and borrow the flash drive from me and stick it in a computer and away we go. So I'm gonna have to con my daughter into that, she'll have it done in 10 minutes, but, yeah. But, so, did you have any other questions pop up on your phone?
No, you wanna read this quick? We're gonna have to leave, I got an appointment, I gotta be too, but if you wanna read that quick, and I can figure out how to share it. I asked her if she's seen it on live stream, but I haven't heard back from her, so.
Oh, I teach you, but, yeah,
I can figure out how to send it to you or copy it or whatever. I will get it to you so you have it, so. I'm curious to see if she heard it on live stream, or seen it on live stream.
yeah, I don't know. Have we heard from John? Did John make it to our live stream? No? So hopefully over the next few months, we have to have, the
bank on the national.
800 or whatever number we call for the
I'm not sure.
utilities to come in
I don't know.
and mark out the electrical and whatever else is running through there that they may have paved over 100 years ago. Roxy?
You might need a thermometer at Creek Days and have it marked for what your need is, that everybody can see when they come into the,
We will have that all inside for the pancake breakfast.
okay.
So, yeah.
Save the circle,
What?
save the egg,
Say the
Yeah.
oval.
save the oval.
Save the oval, yeah.
We were trying to,
Jason is,
And
Go Mako?
ovals kind of.
Okay, Go Mako was kind enough to lay out the oval to scale for me, to start the scale model. So, and we've got it to the scale that it should be like model trains, 1/12 scale. And so for the fencing, I'm gonna visit Hobby Lobby and see what I can get. If it's plastic fence that's similar, I can heat it up and mold it to my sections and stuff, and do a few things like that, but we hope to have all of that done for Crick Day, so. Renee, got anything to add?
no, I think you did a
Jim?
good job.
The two cohorts left.
Is there a woodworker around here who likes to tinker with that miniature stuff? Could build your fence for you out of wood?
I don't know,
Oh, I know there's people around that do that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
That's pretty intricate.
How about
for the
Doug?
fencing. Yeah, that's a little too fine for his
His work?
work, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.